Welcome, weary traveller. Tonight we journey to the golden lands of ancient Egypt, a realm of warm sands, gentle Nile breezes, and gods older than memory. In this gentle storytelling session, we will wander through 5 timeless Egyptian myths, each told softly to ease you into sleep. Relax under the starlit sky, feel the day's heat fade like distant sunlight, and imagine the slow, silent pulse of the river Nile as it lulls the world. We will hear how all things emerged from the primeval waters of none, how Osiris rose as a just king and then fell by betrayal, how Isis's devoted search brought him back, and how their son Horus finally claimed his rightful crown. We will end by drifting with the sun god Ra on his nightly voyage through the Duat, the underworld of dreams. Take a moment to find comfort, perhaps a soft pillow under your head, a cozy blanket wrapped warm. Let each word paint itself in the mind's eye like shifting desert sands at dusk. Before we begin, if you enjoy myth and history as much as peaceful sleep, perhaps consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. But rest easy, no one is asking for anything but your relaxation. Now, sink deeper into your pillow. Let the Nile wind carry away the day's worries like a gentle boat at dawn. Close your eyes if you wish, and let your breath steady and calm. The ancient gods and wonders of Egypt are waiting just beyond twilight, ready to guide you towards sleep. Relax, and let us begin our first story. Before there were sand dunes, before there were acacia trees, before a single ibis unfurled its white wings above the Nile, there was only none. Picture an ocean so endless you cannot glimpse a bank or cliff or island anywhere, a sea without horizon, without sky, without even the faint shimmer of moonlight. It is black, yet strangely soothing, as if darkness itself were a soft blanket laid over every thought. There is no wind to ripple its surface, yet you sense an immeasurable depth beneath. The water feels ancient, older than memory, older than any dream a mortal might remember upon waking. Float there for a moment, suspended in cool silence. No heartbeat, no ticking seconds, no distant thunder, only the gentle pulse of eternity. The Egyptians called this place the infinite deep of possibilities, for from it anything could be born. None is not frightening. It's a cradle of potential, a dark velvet cradle rocked by the universe. Time does not move in this place. One moment could be 1,000 years, 1,000 years could be a single sigh. Then, ever so slowly, the silence shivers. A faint glimmer, softer than starlight, glows far below the surface, swelling like a seed pushing up through rich, wet earth. From that shimmer rises Atom, the self-made, the lonely one. Imagine a warm ember spiraling upward through dark water, gathering brilliance as it climbs. Atom is both God and light, breath and thought. He does not yet have a face or limbs, just a luminous presence drifting upward. But with every heartbeat, each heartbeat his own, for nothing else exists to mark the rhythm, he gains clarity, color, and form. At last Atum breaks the surface of Nun, and where his radiance touches the water, a benben stone thrusts upward, a small pyramidal mound of sacred clay. Smooth, shining and golden, it emerges like the first island at dawn. Atum settles upon it, and for the first time there is dry land. I am alone, Atum whispers, his voice soft yet rich, like the timbre of a flute played in a vast hall. But I hold within me all that is yet to be. His words ripple across Nun, forming concentric rings of potential. Those rings are time itself, widening outward so that future moments can nest within them like pearls. Atum sits in contemplation. Though godly, he feels something new, longing, a desire for companionship, for another spark to echo his light. In the Egyptian imagination, creation is an act of loneliness answered. And so Atum takes a deep breath, a breath so profound none itself seems to inhale, and from that breath he releases a gentle sigh. The sigh condenses into two shimmering orbs that hover before him like dew on lotus petals. Slowly they take shape. One becomes Shu, the essence of air, limber and translucent, a warm breeze smelling faintly of myrrh. The other becomes Tefnut, the essence of moisture, her skin cool and glistening like fresh morning mist. They smile at their father and bow as newly formed children greet the dawn. Atum speaks tenderly. You, Shu, shall lift the veil of heaviness and give every creature the breath of ease. You, Tefnut, shall soothe dryness and let life drink. Shu exhales and a soft current flows across the benben. Tefnut stretches her fingers and droplets bead on the newborn mound. Steam rises where air meets moisture, swirling around the trio in pearly ribbons. Like curious toddlers, Shu and Tefnut soon wander off, exploring the limitless horizon. They drift across none on invisible currents, tasting darkness, hearing its silence, chasing the distant sparkle of possibility. At first, Atum watches proudly, but hours or eons pass with no sign of their return. For the first time, the lonely one feels fear. So Atum fashions his eye, an orb of pure living fire, bright as a miniature sun, and sends it searching into the distance. The eye of Atum glides above the waters, surveying every nook of chaos for the missing pair. When it finally finds them, far from the benben, it escorts them home in a beacon of warm light. The eye's brilliance paints gold ripples over none, and where that fire touches water, small fishes awake, darting like sparks. Overjoyed at his children's return, Atum sheds tears, tears of relief, tears of reunion. Each tear that drops onto the benben or into Nun transforms into a tiny rempet shoot, unfurling green leaves, or into a bright dragonfly that skims the water's surface. In another moment, those tears become the first humans, tiny figures blinking in wonder on the moist sand. Humankind is born from divine emotion, the tender empathy of a parent god. The eye, having fulfilled its mission, rests upon Atum's brow, later to shine in the heavens as the blazing sun. The family grows. From the loving union of air and moisture, Shu and Tefnut, two more deities emerge, Geb and Nut. Shu inhales Tefnut's fragrant mist. He exhales, and on that breath rides the tiny spark of new gods. Geb appears first, his skin rich brown like fertile soil. He lies prone, yawning, and as he moans softly, his laughter becomes distant thunder. When he stretches, mountains rise from his shoulders. When he shifts, valleys and riverbeds appear along his ribs. Nut arrives next, so tall she must bend to fit the sky. Her skin is deep indigo, sprinkled with faint, gem-like stars. She arches over Geb protectively. When she inhales, evening descends. When she exhales, dawn blushes. Shu, the air, steps between them, raising Nut gently so the world will not collapse into darkness. In that tender separation of earth and sky are born dusk and dawn, space and time, the room for oceans to breathe and horizons to widen. Nut beams down at Geb. Beloved, though we part each day, our love will travel in rays of starlight. Geb rumbles affectionately, and when I feel your tears upon my cheek, the deserts shall bloom. Indeed, morning dew is said to be Nut's tears of longing for Geb, and crops arise on earth as proof of their love. With Nut elevated, her body curves gracefully across the expanse. She is the vault on which stars are pinned. Each night she swallows the sun as it slips beyond the horizon. Each dawn she gives birth to it anew. Ancient priests imagined that the red glow of sunrise was the sun-child emerging from Nut's womb, moist with divine gold. Time begins to pulse in gentle cycles. Shu commands breezes that rustle invisible reeds. Tefnut weaves soft fog that hangs low like shawls. As air and moisture mingle, clouds are born, drifting like silent barges in the nascent blue. Some gather in bold herds, becoming storms that nourish Geb's bare back. Rain falls in shimmering beads, and where it lands, Geb sprouts emerald grass. Soon the world hums with new rhythms, hot daylight tempered by cooling twilight, seasons spiraling like a giant wheel, Akhet, the flood, Pere, the emergence, and Shemu, the harvest. Atum watches proudly as the desert's edge turns into meandering wetlands, and the wetlands into lush fields of papyrus. His earlier loneliness feels distant now, replaced by a glowing satisfaction. On a soft midnight heavy with the scent of lotus blooms, Nut feels a stirring. She and Geb, though separated by air, share a secret vow to bring forth divine children who will rule aspects of life. In many tellings, the sun god, Atum-Ra, forbids Nut from birthing children on any day of the year, fearing cosmic imbalance. Yet wise Thoth, god of wisdom, joins Nut in kindness. He gambles with the moon for extra light, wins 5 additional days, and grants Nut the time she needs. Over those 5 sacred days, Nut gives birth to 4 children, and on the final day, twins arrive, making 5 births in all. First, Osiris comes, glowing like dawn. As he coos, seeds sprout and birds trill. Second comes Horus the Elder, whose eyes flash silver like early evening stars. Third arrives Set, strong and unpredictable, his newborn cry like a desert wind. Fourth is Isis, smiling warmly, her gaze deep with compassion. Finally, fifth, Nephthys emerges quiet as twilight, comforting her mother with gentle laughter. To each child, the gathered gods whisper blessings. Geb offers them gems from deep caverns. Nut kisses their brows. Shu and Tefnut swirl breezes and mist around the newborns as lullabies. The siblings rest on rose-petal blankets, unaware of future rivalries, sharing a cradle carved from fresh cedar. Even with a radiant sun in the sky, much of the world remains dim under Nun's mystery. To bring gentle color to creation, Atum peers into the waters and plucks a single lotus seed. He plants it at the edge of the Benben, where warm light meets cool waves. Days, or perhaps centuries, pass, and the seed unfurls pale green leaves. One dawn, its perfect bud opens. From its center arises a newborn child, Nephitim, fragrance of dawn. As he stretches tiny arms, the lotus releases a perfume so lovely it fills every corner of creation. That scent still lingers each time a lotus flower opens at sunrise. It is said to be Nephitim's breath greeting the day. Nephitim later becomes guardian of essential oils, giving humanity papyrus balms and unguents to soothe sorrow. Every perfume we know echoes his first sweet sigh. As air and rain dance above, Geb begins to fashion valleys and plateaus, his laughter rumbling into deep canyons. Where his fingertips press soil, acacia groves spring up. Where his knuckles rest, clusters of rocky pyramids form. He shakes out his sandy hair, and dunes spill across eastern horizons. Shu and Tefnut play hide-and-seek, giggling winds and drizzles across the land. Each time, Tefnut's dew kisses earth. Frogs leap awake, croaking gently. Each time, Shu brushes a shadow. Ibises unfold slender wings, taking flight. At Nut's urging, stars begin to sing, tiny chimes that only sleeping dreamers can hear. Their music attracts baboons who clap at sunrise, welcoming Ra. among reeds, crocodiles drift like ancient shadows. By midday, hippopotami surface, snorting softly. All creatures find homes, some in burrows shaped from Geb's sandy paws, others in branches held aloft by Shu's breeze. To maintain balance, Atum appoints guardians. Anubis shepherds souls, Sobek watches river currents, Sekhmet keeps illness at bay, though her roar occasionally scorches the desert. All these deities align themselves like beads on a protective necklace around creation's neck. From the sticky black mud of Nun, newly warmed by Ra's first sunrise, Atum shapes tiny figurines, men and women, like a potter with clay. He molds limbs, noses, lips. He pinches eyelids delicately, as if sculpting birds' wings. When he is pleased with their forms, he bends low and whispers secrets, language, laughter, and longing. Then he opens his lungs and breathes into them. The figurines tremble, then stretch, then stand. Their first gaze is upon the golden horizon. Human voices fill the air for the first time. Soft greetings, surprised gasps, ripple of wonder at their own hands. They turn to Atum with gratitude, but he simply nods and gestures to the vast land around them. Build, dream, remember, he murmurs. When they ask where they should live, Geb lifts his arm, revealing a fertile valley. A knot scatters stars above so they may always find direction at night. Thus humanity steps into a fresh garden world. The first family constructs reed shelters near slow backwaters. They learn to weave baskets from papyrus, guided by Isis's patient instruction. They plant barley where Osiris's footprints fell, and harvest gold grain months later. In gratitude, they offer the first loaves at a clay shrine to Atum. The smell of baking bread drifts upward, pleasing the gods. Osiris smiles, knowing the cycle of life has begun. The gods gather at twilight on the Bemben to celebrate creation's stability. They kneel in a circle, holding lotus lanterns glowing blue-white. Atum stands at the center with the eye gleaming on his brow. Shu and Tefnut raise their palms, and a warm breeze carries the scent of frankincense toward distant horizons. Atum speaks in a calm tone as water over smooth stones. This world thrives on balance. Each of you holds a thread. Maintain it gently. As he finishes, the lantern lotuses drift into the night sky like silent balloons, spreading soft light into shadowy corners. Wherever a lantern lands on earth, it becomes a new shrine, a place where mortals might one day pray, leaving bowls of milk or small carved scarabs. Before they depart to their respective domains, Nut plucks a single star from her skin and tucks it behind Geb's ear. The star glows warm, casting flickering gold reflections across his cheek. It is a promise that even separated, they remain connected. Each night, Geb can look up and see Nut's shimmer, and Nut can peer down at the gleaming rivers crossing Geb's surface. This tender gift becomes the seed of all romance tales mortals will later tell. How distance doesn't destroy love, it merely paints it in sky and stone. Eventually, Ra notices shadows lengthening. Nut bends low and gently, lovingly swallows the sun. As the golden disk travels through her belly, twilight falls. Birds hush, lotus flowers close. Ra passes safely within Nut's body, a secret passage lit by pinkish glow. On Earth, early humans see darkness for the first time but feel no fear. They gather around small fires, whispering stories of the glowing eye that will return. Above, the eye on Atum's brow dims to a soft ember. He gazes over his handiwork, stars twinkling, frogs singing night songs, reeds swaying like lullabies. Content, Atum closes his eyes. Creation is complete, but never finished. It will keep breathing, shifting, cycling forever. Each dawn will retell the first dawn, each dusk will echo the first dusk. And each heartbeat of none, though hidden now, will subtly remind all beings of their watery origins. Rest here a while. Let the gentle croak of distant frogs in your mind's ear lull you. Feel the sweet night breeze, as if Shu himself were fanning your brow. Sense cool mist, Tiefnut's gift, settle softly on your cheeks. Above you, Nut's starry curve sparkles tenderly, and beneath you, Geb's firm earth supports every breath. You are held by the same elements the gods shaped: air, moisture, earth, sky. Your pulse beads with the rhythm of none's eternal sea. Feel how safe, how infinite creation seems when first formed. No worries of tomorrow, only the hush of now. If your thoughts wander, let them drift like lantern lotuses, floating calmly on none's gentle surface. Trust that morning will come, just as Ra emerges from Nut each day, just as Atom once rose from the dark. The cycle is unbroken, a warm blanket across all time. Listen, far-off ibis wings whisper over the reeds. Perhaps you smell fresh barley bread, proof of humankind's first harvest. Or you feel the perfume of a blooming lotus, Nephitim's sweet sigh. All these sensations spark from the creation story, weaving the fabric of your dreams. As you drift towards sleep, remember this: out of endless darkness came the first glimmer of light. Out of loneliness arose companionship. Out of a single breath blossomed air and rain and every living thing. Should doubts or worries ripple your mind like passing storms, picture Shu gently lifting them away. Picture Tefnut kissing new calm where tension once lay. Know you are part of this grand beginning, the clay figurine given life by Atom's breath, the tear of empathy turned human. You belong. You are cherished by sky and earth alike. The sun climbs graciously above the reed-lined river, and the hush of early morning unfolds across the valley like pale linen. Long before a single plough has traced its furrow into the dark silt, the land already breathes in slow contentment, warmed by certainty that its king will walk the fields today. Osiris, firstborn of Geb and Nut, rises from his quiet couch in the palace of white limestone. He pauses beside a latticed window, feeling a mild breeze slip over his fingertips as though greeting him by name. Down in the courtyard, palms sway with a leisurely rustle, almost a sigh of devotion, while doves coo from the eaves. His steward waits several respectful steps behind, hands folded around a staff inlaid with carnelian. The king lifts a crook and flail woven with new gold threads and drapes them across his forearms, yet he moves with such effortless gentleness that these ancient symbols appear as soft accessories rather than emblems of power. Osiris walks barefoot along a polished corridor that opens upon a terrace overlooking the Nile. From this vantage he sees fishing canoes gliding like dragonflies on glass, their silhouettes mirrored in the slow current. A flute song drifts upward, faraway herdsmen greeting dawn with the first notes of gratitude. He closes his eyes and inhales. Damp papyrus, wood smoke from distant hearths, a faint sweetness from date cakes the palace bakers have just set to cool. When he at last descends marble steps to the garden below, priests and scribes bow low, offering morning salutations that flutter like linen banners. Osiris answers each greeting with a nod so sincere that every petitioner feels fully seen, fully blessed. Isis meets him beneath a flowering sycamore, her white shift catching early sunbeams so the cloth seems spun of light itself. In her hands she carries a shallow basket of blue lotus blooms, freshly plucked. She lifts one blossom to her husband's nose, smiling when he inhales the perfume, a scent at once sleepy and invigorating, reminding them both of pre-dawn prayers and quiet river inlets. They walk side by side toward the stables, pausing often. Isis stoops to encourage a gardener whose seedlings droop from last night's chill. Osiris pauses to cradle a small cat that has strayed from the kitchen yard. Together they move through the palace grounds like benevolent mourning spirits, distributing attention, praise, and gentle instruction, the way a mild spring rain distributes nourishment to every leaf. Their stallion, a dappled creature named Journey's Gift, waits at the gatehouse. Stable boys draw back the cedar doors and bow, yet Osiris calls each lad by name, Kaem, Nebamun, Armosa, and thanks them for tending to the horse's hooves so carefully. The king mounts first, then reaches down a steady hand to lift Isis onto the soft saddle behind him. Her arms circle his waist, and though the gesture is intimate, it is also public ritual. When the people of Egypt see their king and queen ride abroad together, they witness the harmony of heaven and earth embodied in living form. They follow a path of tamped earth between barley fields already gilded by green. Farmers glance up from their plows, and the respectful hush that falls is immediate yet soothing. It feels less like the weight of royal protocol and more like a collective in-breath, as if every heart realigns itself to a steadier rhythm when Osiris passes. The king halts his horse, dismounts, and strides into the furrow to speak with a grey-bearded farmer named Menka. He kneels on the crumbly soil to inspect seed spacing, praising the even rows. He gestures toward the flood's high water mark still visible along the dike, explaining how next year's embankment could be raised half the height of a standing calf. Menka nods, absorbing every word, but what lingers after Osiris remounts is not instruction alone. It is the feeling of having been invited into royal confidence. At midday, heat wraps the valley in shimmering folds. Osiris and Isis rest beneath a tamarisk whose feathery branches rustle like quiet applause. The couple share a lunch of figs, goat cheese, and cool water poured from a clay jar beaded with condensation. While they eat, children gather at a discreet distance, their curiosity bright in sun-squinted eyes. Isis beckons them forward. She draws shapes in the dust, single lines forming stalks, then a three-leafed glyph that represents wheat. She shows them how grain turns to bread, seed, stalk, harvest, mill, dough, oven. The children repeat her motions, palms dusty, and when she is satisfied, she breaks her loaf into small pieces, giving each child a taste. Some run off laughing, crumbs escaping down their chins. Others linger in awe, as if the bread held secret power. By late afternoon, they reach a cluster of brick houses where linen weavers sit at upright looms, feet bare against hard-packed earth. Osiris studies the rows of thread, notes the subtle tension between warp and weft, and suggests wetting flax fibers overnight to make them stronger. Isis tests a finished sheet, marveling at its softness. She traces the edge along her forearm and imagines swaddling infants in such cloth. The weavers exchange glances. From royal lips, praise becomes prophecy, an assurance that their craft matters to gods and mortals alike. Meanwhile, far beyond the lush valley, on the stark rim of the western desert, Set stands on a windswept plateau. His cloak flaps like a storm cloud torn loose from the sky. Where Osiris radiates warmth, Set radiates restless heat, the kind that shudders above sand dunes at noon. He stares eastward toward the fertile ribbon that is Egypt, hands curling into fists when sunlight flashes from limestone temple roofs. Each flash feels to him like mockery, sunlight celebrating his brother's peace, not his own might. He stamps a hoof at foot, Set's legs sometimes appear human, sometimes as those of a great antelope, and dust swirls up in irritated spirals. He is not entirely alone. Behind him crouch a dozen loyal retainers, warriors hardened by desert raids, their skin darkened and cracked from unrelenting wind. They watch their lord's agitation in silence, though one, a broad-shouldered captain named Hekau, finally ventures a suggestion. Perhaps another military excursion southward would cool Set's blood. Set dismisses the idea with a curt wave. Raids bring momentary satisfaction, yes, but they do nothing to alter the fundamental truth gnawing at him. Osiris receives adoration freely, effortlessly, while he, Set, commands fear rather than love. The desert god cannot decide which emotion is more valuable, but he knows envy when it burns his chest, hot as desert sand at midsummer. Night falls. The valley cools under Nut's velvet canopy, and fires flicker from every hearth. Osiris and Isis return to the palace by lamplight. They wash the day's dust from hands, arms, and feet, pouring rose-scented water from alabaster ewers. Isis combs fragrant oil into Osiris's hair, and he, in turn, adorns her wrists with a garland of fresh jasmine. In the central courtyard, musicians pluck lyres and beat softly on hand drums, their melodies gentle, almost sleepy. Under that soothing chorus, Osiris addresses scribes about tomorrow's canal clearing project, ensuring floodwaters will reach distant fields. He speaks of equitable grain distribution, of storehouse inventories, of readiness should drought ever threaten. The scribes' reed pens scratch swiftly on scrolls, yet the atmosphere remains tranquil. Logistics in Osiris's mouth sound like lullabies promising security. In these early months of Osiris's reign, children in far villages recite his name beside evening lamps, as though it were itself a prayer. Fishermen murmur it while casting nets. Midwives whisper it in newborns' ears so their first breath carries blessing. Even jackals prowling tomb shadows pause when their keen noses catch the lingering incense of palace offerings. The scent mingles with Osiris's aura so completely that predators tread lightly, as if aware that peace itself patrols these lands. But envy grows fastest where sunlight is brightest. Each dawn that brings new songs of gratitude to Osiris also brings another prick to Set's pride. He begins riding eastward more frequently, skirting the edges of green farmland. From behind clumps of thorn scrub, he watches farmers load grain into wicker baskets. He notes their laughter, their casual trust in tomorrow's abundance. It disgusts him and fascinates him in equal measure. He wonders, if Osiris vanished, would laughter linger? Would trust? Would crops still mature so calmly? Or would the world need Set, storm, dryness, stern oversight to feel complete? One evening, Set's pondering crystallizes into grim determination. As the sun drops behind ragged dunes and violet shadows curl at the borders of the floodplain, the desert god summons his inner circle. They gather in a ruin of sandstone columns long ago swallowed by shifting sands, columns older than the first plough, older perhaps than memory itself. Flames from tallow torches lick at the carved surfaces, revealing faded images of forgotten divinities. Here, Set outlines a plan. His voice is a low rasp at first, but soon it deepens, strengthened by burning conviction. "We shall host a feast," he proclaims, "a celebration so lavish my dear brother cannot refuse our invitation." He describes a chest, no, a masterpiece, fashioned of rare cedar shipped from Byblos, inlaid with lapis and electrum, carved to fit one person alone, Osiris. The chest will gleam with impossible beauty, a siren for royal curiosity. And, Set adds, eyes narrowing, Whoever fits perfectly inside this marvel will receive it as a gift. A gift, yes. A gift that becomes a prison once a heavy lid slams shut. His followers trade glances. Admiration and fear tangle on their faces. They have seen Set's temper and his cunning, but this scheme glitters with something new. Sophistication, perhaps, or a measure of theatrical irony befitting a deity of chaos. Hekau, standing nearest the torchlight, dares to whisper a concern about destiny and the wrath of other gods. Set's response is a cold smile. Destiny favors the bold, he murmurs, and wrath is only wrath until it bends before greater will. Over the coming weeks, the chest is commissioned in secrecy. Artisans labor in a hidden courtyard where date palms cast tight shadows. They measure and remeasure, shaping the cedar interior to Osiris's tall proportions. Set, cunning, has acquired those measurements through a palace servant charmed by promises of wealth. The inlays depict stylized papyrus and crowned falcons, symbols Osiris cherishes. Each time the light catches the lapis and electrum, the chest seems to shimmer like water at midday. Set visits the worksite in the hush of dawn, running a possessive hand across the smooth rim, imagining Osiris's breath quickening within. Meanwhile, life in the valley hums blissfully unaware. Osiris oversees harvest festivals, where he invites farmers to roast quail and share pomegranates at palace tables. Children act out myths with wooden dolls, while priests chant hymns praising harvest gods. Isis travels upriver in a papyrus skiff, distributing amulets she has personally blessed. She stops at small temples to instruct novices in the art of mixing healing salves, anise, honey, resin, balms to ease childbirth and soothe fevers. At every stop she hears the same refrain. Thanks to your rain, O great ones, our granaries overflow, our hearts are light. At dusk, Isis wears a cloak of midnight blue and climbs the palace tower. There she sprinkles scented oil upon a brazier, offering gratitude to the unseen guardians. Smoke curls upward, carrying her whispered hopes that prosperity will endure, that her own body will soon quicken with life. She imagines a son with Osiris's steady eyes, a daughter with her own quiet resolve. Below, Osiris studies irrigation maps, adjusting the angles of new canals so winter runoff won't wash away seedlings. It is a peaceful existence, yet not one lacking purpose. The king and queen are shepherds of time itself, coaxing each season to unfold with grace. Zut chooses the week of the inundation's climax for his feast. The Nile has swelled to its fullest, brimming bank to bank, mirroring the indigo sky. Lotus flowers bob on slow eddies, frog song thickens the night air. The interval between floodwaters' arrival and their gentle retreat is sacred, marking renewal, the promise of another year's fertility. Inviting Osiris during such auspicious days seems natural, even dutiful. The invitation scroll, bound in red ribbon, bears respectful greetings. Beloved brother, share with me a night of celestial music beneath the palms. Let us honor the river's bounty. Osiris, trusting and gracious, accepts at once. Isis, upon hearing of the invitation, experiences a fleeting intuition, a ripple of unease like a cool draft under a sealed door. Yet she dismisses the feeling, remembering childhood days when Set entertained his siblings with daring hunts and jests. Perhaps her brother-in-law seeks reconciliation or simply wishes to bask together in harvest gratitude. Preparations begin. In palace kitchens, chefs rub spices into quail and marinate fish in coriander and pomegranate molasses. Servants polish bronze mirrors and fill alabaster jars with aromatic oils. Tailors sew new linen garments for the royal couple, weaving threads dyed with indigo so deep it mirrors Nut's starry robe. Yet even amid this bustle, a hush pervades, the hush of destiny turning pages, unseen but inevitable. The night arrives warm and perfumed. A half moon hangs over palm fronds, and the palace courtyard glows with 100 braziers. Set's estate sits across a tributary, reachable by a pontoon bridge strung with lanterns shaped like lotus buds. Their yellow petals flicker, casting shifting halos on black water. Osiris and Isis travel by gilded barge, musicians strumming harps in slow, lilting melodies. Isis leans against her husband's shoulder, scanning the lantern patterns reflected on the current. She cannot shake the earlier ripple of unease, but Osiris squeezes her palm gently, his calm spreading through her veins. Set meets them at the landing, arms wide, grin gleaming in torchlight. He bows low, too low, and grasps Osiris's shoulders in what appears an affectionate embrace. For a moment, Isis sees tension behind Set's smile, but Osiris laughs, thanking his brother for such a warm welcome. Guests gather beneath the date palms, nobles draped in linen, priests wearing collars of faience, foreign envoys from the gold mines of the south. Incense smoke curls in soft ribbons. Musicians strike gentle chords, and the night fills with a mellow harmony, subdued enough that conversation rises comfortably above it, but resonant enough to soothe anxious hearts. Set leads Osiris and Isis to the grand pavilion. Silken panels ripple overhead like sails catching a silent wind. Low couches ring an oval table of polished sycamore, upon which servants place silver dishes piled with figs, honey cakes, almonds steeped in rosewater. Pottery goblets brim with sweet date wine, spiced just enough to warm the throat. Osiris takes a sip, letting the flavors mingle on his tongue. He compliments the vintners and Set's hospitality. "My brother," Set proclaims, raising his own cup. "Tonight we celebrate not only the river, but you, the shepherd of Egypt's plenty." A murmur of approval ripples through the gathering. Stewards bring platters of roasted duck stuffed with herbs. They carry braziers of sizzling goat marinated with thyme. Musicians shift to a gentle rhythmic pulse, punctuated by soft sistrums. Under the flickering pavilion lights, everything appears cloaked in golden haze. The air, the cushions, the pride in Set's eyes as he hovers behind Osiris's couch. Isis notices how her brother-in-law's gaze lingers on Osiris, sharp as a falcon's. She leans toward her husband. Set is perhaps overwhelmed by the joy of the evening, she whispers, though her voice carries a tremor she cannot conceal. Osiris covers her hand with his own. "He honors the gods in his way," he replies softly. Osiris's trust is a deep well, carved by years of goodwill. Suspicion cannot find footing on its smooth surface. He turns back to the feast as acrobats tumble into the pavilion, their twists and flips eliciting laughter from the crowd. The night cools. Stars emerge in droves, swelling like bright seeds across the velvet sky. The moon climbs higher. Set rises from his couch and claps twice. Servants scurry away and return bearing a massive object draped in linen. They set it down at the pavilion's center. A hush falls, punctuated only by the hiss of torches. Set steps forward, eyes bright. "Friends, allies, noble guests," he announces, his voice a low hum that vibrates like a distant storm. "I present a curiosity from far-off lands, brought by caravan across burning sands. Behold!" With a flourish he whisks away the linen cloth. Gasps and murmurs ripple. Before them rests a chest of astounding beauty, cedar polished to a mirror sheen, its edges inlaid with veins of electrum that shimmer pale gold. Lapis tiles depict river reeds and soaring falcons. Malachite discs form stylized sunbursts. The chest seems alive with reflected torchlight. Set strides around it, palm caressing the smooth lid. Legend, he continues, claims this chest grants fortune to the one whose form fits it most perfectly, a vessel shaped for a destined soul. Shall we discover that soul among us tonight? Laughter and applause break out, peppered with playful wagers. Isis's unease blooms again. She studies the chest's proportions, the length of a tall man, the width of broad shoulders. She glimpses faintly incised hieroglyphs, symbols of rebirth and journeying. Something coils in her stomach. She meets Set's gaze across the box and sees only genial anticipation. Or is it triumph gleaming beneath the surface? One by one, guests step forward amidst good-natured teasing. A slender priest of Heka tries first, but his feet press awkwardly against the wall. A broad-shouldered envoy from the mines attempts next. His knees cannot bend comfortably. Laughter swells each time the fit fails. The chest beckons to the crowd like a golden riddle. Set waves Osiris forward. Brother, surely you must try. If fortune favors anyone tonight, it will favor Egypt's rightful king. The statement is laced with honey, yet edges glint beneath. Osiris rises, modestly brushing crumbs from his tunic, and approaches the chest. Isis grips her goblet, knuckles whitening. A hush envelops the pavilion, even the torches seeming to lean closer. Osiris stands before the chest and traces one finger over the inlays. A beautiful piece, he says quietly. Then, with graceful confidence, he lowers himself inside. The cedar interior, cool and fragrant with resin, cradles his shoulders perfectly. His heels align flush with the base. His arms rest easily along his sides. Gasps of admiration ripple. The fit is absolute. Set's eyes flare. Before any remark can be made, he slams down the lid. A heavy thud resonates. At that instant, hidden carpenters rush from behind pillars, hammering bronze nails along the seams. Others slide iron clasps into place, twisting them shut. The pavilion erupts into confusion, cries, shouts, the scrape of benches. Isis leaps forward, but two of Set's guards bar her path. Inside the chest, Osiris feels darkness collapse around him. Cedar aroma fills his nostrils. He catches one deep breath, calling upon his inner calm, though shock prickles along his spine. He hears muffled hammering and faintly Isis's voice, high, frantic, then abruptly smothered by distance. Outside, Set raises both arms. His voice booms. Peace, this is but a demonstration, a test of trust between brothers. Many guests freeze in a tangle of half-risen postures. Set gestures to his soldiers, who sweep the crowded pavilion with stern gazes. No one dares move. Isis's eyes blaze with fury, but she is guided backward by two women who fear for her safety. Set signals to stronger men. They hoist the chest and carry it out beyond the torchlight, across sand still warm from the day's sun. The palm grove's rustle muffles the king's coffin prison. Isis breaks free and runs after, heart pounding, but soldiers close ranks. In the flicker of lanterns, she sees the chest borne onto a waiting chariot lined with woven rushes. Set climbs to the driver's perch, lashes the reins. Horses surge forward, hooves drumming like thunder against the packed earth. The chariot hurtles down a slope toward the Nile's dark gleam. Moonlight flickers off ripples. Desert wind whips Set's cloak behind him. He calls to his men, faster, at the riverbank. Stevedores stand ready by a barge. The chest is wrestled on board, ropes uncoiled. One push, and the barge coasts into the current. Set watches chestnut eyes glinting as water begins to lap against cedar. Inside the chest, Osiris feels the shift, the creak of hull, the subtle rocking. He understands now, this is no test. Yet panic yields quickly to stillness. He recalls deep breathing rituals learned from temple priests. He whispers silent words to Isis, though she cannot hear them, pledging faith in her strength. In calm darkness, he feels the water's pull, imagines the Nile's ancient currents wrapping him in a cool embrace, steering him toward an unknown shore. Isis arrives at the water's edge moments too late. She watches a lone torch on the departing barge shrink to an ember. River reeds hiss in evening wind like quiet laughter of unseen spirits. Her breath shudders, tears blur the moon's reflection. Osiris, she calls, voice cracking. Somewhere downstream, a crocodile bellows, a deep, hollow note that seems to mock her despair. She falls to her knees in wet sand. For the first time in her adult life, she does not know what to do next. Set, meanwhile, lingers on the desert bank, eyes drinking in Isis's silhouette in the moonlight. A muscle ticks in his jaw, rage or triumph, even he is unsure. He has achieved the act, but exhilaration rings hollow. Still, there is no turning back. In a low voice, he tells Hekau to spread word that Osiris has embarked on a ceremonial journey, that he will return enlightened. Hekau bows but cannot meet Set's gaze. When dawn blushes the sky, rumors have begun to swirl. Some claim Osiris undertook a secret pilgrimage to the Delta Marshes. Others whisper he was taken by river spirits who envied his glory. A few harbor darker suspicions but keep silent, fearing Set's growing power. Officially, Set ascends the throne in temporary stewardship, promising to shepherd the kingdom until his brother resurfaces. Courtiers shed worried tears, yet bow to new reality. Set commands construction of a new audience hall, larger, more imposing, its pillars carved to resemble desert beasts rather than gentle papyrus. Decorations shift from lotus motifs to jagged lightning shapes. Interiors grow darker, incense smoke coils heavy under the roof beams. The land responds. In farmlands, channels clog with silt. A chieftain in the south reports an unexpected drought zone creeping closer each week. Fishermen complain of fewer tilapia in nets. Priests murmur behind sandstone walls, noting that cattle births have declined. Isis feels these changes like bruises on her own skin. She retreats from public life, draping herself in charcoal linen. In her silent chambers she paces, studying models of boats, consulting star charts, deciphering reed sketch maps of every Nile tributary in hopes of tracing the chest's route. At night, she dreams of cedar and cold water closing over Osiris's chest. She wakes with heart hammering. Yet Isis's grief never calcifies into helplessness. She is goddess of magic, of motherly ferocity. On an evening when palm fronds rattle warnings outside her window, she kneels before a statue of her father Geb, pressing her forehead to cool stone. Her whisper is steady now. Bless me with earth's patience. Grant me the stubbornness of mountains. Next, she lights a dish of sandalwood for her mother Nut, praying for cosmic guidance. Smoke drifts upward, painting unseen runes in torchlight. Isis resolves. She will find Osiris, no matter how far the river coils, no matter what traps Set places in her path. Thus begins her search, journeys by moonlight, disguises among fisherfolk, pleas to river gods, alliances with papyrus spirit guardians. She will comb marshes where ibis wade and deserts where dust devils hide treasures. But those stories belong to the years ahead. Tonight, we leave Isis standing at the threshold of her chamber, bronze lamp flickering at her back, wind tugging stray curls across tear-bright cheeks. Outside, the Nile sighs in the dark, carrying its secret cargo ever farther downstream. Soft dawn gathers over the palace terraces, washing the white gold limestone in gentle ribbons of peach and rose. Isis stands at an upper window, her fingertips resting on cool stone, her gaze drifting westward toward the broad hush of the river. She has not slept, yet fatigue never truly finds her. Resolve hums through every heartbeat, quiet, steady, determined, like the low vibration of a harp string that never quite fades. A serving girl arrives with a tray of barley bread sweetened by pomegranate and a clay cup of date water, but Isis only thanks her softly and lifts neither cup nor loaf. Instead, she turns to a cedar chest in the corner, draws out a long drape of undyed linen, and settles it over her ebony hair. The cloth falls in soft folds down her back. Its plainness will let her walk unmarked through the villages strung like beads along the Nile. She fastens the linen with a bronze bodkin shaped as a lotus bud, the metal cool against her skin, anchoring her thoughts. Beneath the fabric, on a slender cord, she wears a single lapis blue scarab that Osiris carved for her in their earliest days of courtship. She presses the little charm to her lips, feeling the stone warm beneath her breath, and allows that warmth to steady her pulse. Somewhere in the palace a lamp sputters, echoing faintly along corridors still hushed by night, yet Isis moves unheard. At a side gate she finds Nephthys already waiting. A veil shadows her sister's pale, determined face, but in Nephthys's arms rests a small bronze shrine box. A traveling altar packed with miniature clay guardians, coils of protective linen, and a single sprig of fresh myrrh whose fragrance will veil their passage from prowling jackals. The sisters meet each other's gaze and exchange one quiet nod, an entire vow of loyalty, grief, and courage condensed into the soft flicker of lamplight against their eyes. Before sunrise bleaches the indigo sky, they slip through the gate and into the cool pre-dawn. Two faithful attendants guide sure-footed donkeys burdened with folded cloth, dried figs, sealed jars of natron, and the tools of rites older than memory. At the river's edge, an aged boatman named Pakhet waits by his narrow skiff, its prow painted long ago with a protective eye of Horus that has faded to sea smoke grey. Pakhet bows low, recognizing Isis's bearing even beneath plain linen. She presses a pouch of cornelian beads into his palm, then steps aboard. A single push with the pole and the little craft glides into the river's slow current, cattails whispering against its hull like confidants promising secrecy. Mist rides low over the water, translucent and cool, swirling in soft eddies that reveal shifting mirrors of dawn above. Isis crouches near the prow, trailing 2 fingers in the river's skin. She begins to hum, no louder than the hush of reeds, yet the melody carries the same lullaby she once sang to Osiris, while sunlight rippled through harvest sheaves. She threads into that tune a plea gentle and unwavering. Guide me, beloved. Let love be the lamp where sight is weak. The current bears them northward toward the delta, where rumor has whispered of a cedar chest glimmering through lotus beds. In fishing hamlets, the sisters adopt borrowed names. Today Isis is Nephru the healer, tomorrow Hemet the scribe, and they exchange ointments for stories, talismans for fragments of truth. Children, sensing the kindness in her voice, follow her through dusty lanes and offer pebbles polished by river swirl or feathers plucked from ibis wings. Each small gift she stores in a woven satchel, a growing bouquet of humble blessings. One evening, beneath tamarisk branches alive with cicada song, An old woman spreading linen on a reed fence recounts how a shining chest drifted past during a silver-bright flood tide. It glowed like sunrise, she whispers, and slid away faster than oars could chase. Isis thanks her, tracing the woman's wrinkled hand with quiet reverence, and in her heart the image fixes, cedar boards shimmering over glassy water, Osiris dreaming inside. Days lengthen to weeks. Marshland broadens, lilies crowd the channels until the river becomes a living mosaic of white blossoms and glinting leaves. At last, guided by the wary directions of a fisherman mending nets on a half-submerged branch, they find the deserted chest half hidden beneath lily pads. Cedar still gleams, but the lid gapes open, its hinges twisted by rough hands. Nephthys holds her breath. Isis kneels in the shallow skiff, letting cool water lap her wrists as she runs trembling fingers along splintered edges. She sees the telltale gouges left by hurried tools, recognizes anger flaring through every scar. Someone has opened the coffin and carried away the prize within. Grief compresses her chest, but grief is only the first note. Resolve swiftly follows. They lift the empty box aboard. They cleanse it with natron and incense, transforming it from violated prison into a relic that will help track Osiris anew. Under dusk's mauve hush, they light 4 lamps on reeds around the salvaged coffin, offerings to Wajwa and Happy, guardians of the river. Isis kneels by the electrum inlays and sings again, weaving her question into the river's breathing. Hours pass until an ibis glides overhead, its white wings luminous against violet sky. It cries once, arrowing south. In that lonely cry, Isis hears an answer. She gathers the lamps, husks their flames and gestures to Parket. We follow the bird's call. Night by night, they steer against the river's current, slipping beneath constellations that turn like jeweled gears overhead. At a place where tamarisk roots tangle stone, they locate the chest again, this time sealed within living wood. A monstrous tamarisk of extraordinary girth stands at the river's elbow, its bark scented with amber resin so sweet it perfumes the wind. Village woodcutters, their faces anxious and awestruck, confess to enclosing a beautiful, mysterious corpse within the tree's trunk months earlier, hoping to appease unseen spirits. Isis rests her palm against the swollen bark and feels Osiris's stillness pulsing like a faint heartbeat in timber and sap. Tears well, but discipline is stronger. She persuades the villagers to help fell the fragrant giant under torches that paint the branches gold and blood rose. At dawn, Osiris lies upon a bed of lotus leaves. Even in death, his features remain unblemished, as though the gods have held decay at bay out of respect for Isis's love. She bathes him with water drawn at moonrise, perfumes him with cedar and cinnamon, and together with Nephthys she binds each limb in new linen, whiskered with protective glyphs. She presses her lips once to his brow and promises, "I will carry you home, and the Duat itself will open its gates at your command." But Set's shadow arcs closer. From his granite throne in Thebes he feels the chill of Isis's progress, like a draft creeping under a locked door. Nurturing his jealousy, he sweeps into the delta with a band of iron-hearted riders, swords glinting in dust-laden sun. They find the shrine while the sisters search for oils among reed islands. In a fury both calculating and wild, Set rends Osiris's body into 14 pieces, torso, limbs, heart, head, and hurls each fragment toward a different horizon. One drops into the cataracts of Aswan, another vanishes into Libyan dunes, yet another slides beneath murk of a papyrus-choked channel. And thus does envy attempt to best love by scattering it to the winds. When Isis returns to the violated shrine, anguish seizes her, sharper even than the first loss. But anguish converts, in the very instant of its birth, to unwavering purpose. She rises with eyes of polished obsidian and vows before dawn pink clouds that she will gather every grain of her husband's being. Let the desert widen, she says, let night crowd with jackals, let Set's hounds bay at my shadow, I will not turn back. Nephthys folds her own veil across her face, tears shining like dew, and nods. They begin the second quest. What follows colors the very fabric of Egypt's memory. In desert moonlight, two kites circle lonely dunes, their cries keening across star-littered silence. Villagers glance skyward and whisper, "The sisters pass." At river's edge, sleek otters slip between reeds, leading veiled women to a bone lodged beneath silt. Fishermen feel sudden hush, and no holy footsteps have touched the shoreline. Bastard sends quicksilver cats to guide the search through winding alleys of Memphis. Wadjet's cobra bright gaze reveals a fragment hidden in marsh press. The land itself becomes map and oracle, each wind-borne grain of sand a hieroglyph pointing onward. Piece by piece they gather Osiris, a heart cupped in lotus roots, a rib entombed beneath lapis dust in a forgotten quarry, fingers clasping an agate ring in the shattered kiln of a ruined shrine. They wrap each fragment in purest flax, anoint it with oil steeped in blue lotus, and lay it upon Anubis's black stone altar deep within a limestone grotto veiled by tamarisk vines. Anubis, patient guardian of gates unseen, stitches bone to bone with thread of golden light. His jackal face bends close, his low chant steady as river under starlight. All the while Isis weaves spells of breath and fire, spells written in the secret script of first creation, until at last every piece but one rests rejoined beneath her trembling palms. Only the phallus is lost, devoured, legend will say, by a greedy fish beyond mortal reach. Yet Thoth appears in a hush of ibis wings, offering wisdom, form what is missing from the red-brown clay of Kemet, and breathe into it the pulse of dawn. Isis kneads river clay with drops of her own tears and grains of frankincense. She shapes a symbol of generative power, paints it with glyphs that gleam like sunrise on horizon. She sets the final piece in place, completes the bound body, and kneels to greet the first shimmer of light creeping across the shrine floor. Now the air itself thickens with unseen music. Isis unfurls her cloak, and it changes. One breath, and the linen billows into vast wings jeweled with midnight feathers. She hovers over Osiris, fanning life-laden air across his silent chest. Her voice climbs, syllable by ancient syllable, calling the green god's spirit from the hidden halls of the Duat. The walls tremble, lotus buds quiver, though no wind stirs, and somewhere at the river's deepest root, a crocus of light unfurls. Osiris inhales, soft, then fuller, and eyelids once sealed by death flutter open, revealing irises not of mortal hue, but of luminous moonstone. He rises, emerald glow rippling beneath newly woven linen. His first act is neither wrath nor lamentation, it is tenderness. He lays a gentle palm against Isis's cheek, whispering gratitude so profound it fills the shrine like incense. Yet in that same breath he senses the boundary. The living realm is no longer his. The Duat calls, not as prison, but as throne. He will reign there, judge of the dead, promise of rebirth. He blesses Isis's womb, the seed of their union quickening already with a child who will one day bear falcon wings and set the scales right. He clasps Nephthis's hands in eternal thanks, touches Anubis's dark muzzle with trust, then steps into the veil of dawn shadows, and is gone, leaving in the shrine's hush a gentle scent of cedar and rain. Isis remains beneath the slow receding glow, hand pressed to her belly, feeling new life flutter like a reed in first floodwater. Outside, the land that has withered under Set's heavy hand begins to breathe again. Barley sprouts where fields had lain dull. Fishermen pull nets thrumming with silver flash. Temple singers find old hymns stirring in their throats. Hope returns, delicate yet unbreakable, riding the morning breeze. Set, sensing unseen shift, tosses in restless slumber. In dreams he hears the beating of wide falcon wings approaching, hears the crash of distant thunder even though the sky above the palace is cloudless. He dismisses the omens at dawn, but unease clings like desert dust. For Isis, the season turns inward. She retreats into the delta's labyrinth of reeds, weaving a hidden home of papyrus and lotus, where the river's lullaby will mask a child's first cries. She drinks moonlight, eats honey and dates, and teaches unborn Horus the cadence of justice, how balance must be tended as gently as a lotus span. Nephthys watches over them both, guardian of hush, keeper of quiet tears. And all across Egypt, stories spread in murmured circles. The king of green fields lives now beyond the western horizon, yet his light flows in every river furrow. The rightful heir will someday rise, and storm-dark tyranny will meet the dawn. Thus ends, for now, the tale of Osiris's rise and betrayal, of love that defied coffins, wood, storm and blade, of a queen whose patience pulled her lord from darkness, of a kingdom waiting on the cusp of new morning. The river stills, the sky brightens, and in the hush that follows you can almost hear the flutter of a falcon's distant wings, promising that balance, once broken, will one day settle true again. Soft apricot light trembled over the eastern lip of the horizon when Isis stepped onto the palace balcony, but dawn's gentle colors did nothing to ease the ache carried in her chest. The linen veil that framed her face fluttered in the mild breeze, and still she felt as if she were breathing through woven reeds, every inhalation thin, every exhalation edged by grief sharp enough to slice. Osiris was gone, carried downriver in a coffin meant to hold his living warmth forever. He was husband, king, and guide of the harvest. He was the low, patient hum that steadied every heart in Kemet. Without him the palace corridors now echoed strangely, and the entire river valley seemed to wait in suspended silence, like rows of barley refusing to rustle without their farmer's song. Isis, however, did not allow grief to chain her to stone halls for long. On the second day after his disappearance, she wrapped sorrow in resolve, as firmly as she would one day wrap linen around a holy relic. She summoned her sister Nephthys by a whispered message carried on incense smoke. She gathered reeds for a small traveling skiff and packed it with things that mattered more than jewels or throne scrolls. Lotus blossoms still cool with morning dew, a jar of frankincense whose scent reminded her of temple songs, a bolt of fine linen woven so delicately it fluttered like a breath. These were not simple supplies, they were pledges. Every blossom promised love unbroken, every grain of resin promised a guiding fragrance across unknown waters, every linen thread promised restoration. Before sunrise lifted fully, the sisters pushed their narrow craft into the Nile's sluggish current, and the river, seeing such devotion, cradled them as gently as a lullaby. Mist rose in diaphanous ribbons that morning and drifted around the bow until the skiff itself seemed half made of cloud. Isis took that swirling white as an omen. "The river remembers him," she murmured, fingers trailing through cold water. They felt a subtle tug, as if some invisible fish, curious and gentle, nibbled the wood just enough to urge them forward. Villages slipped by, their clay roofs washed rose gold in dawn's glow. Herdsmen raised sleepy heads, milk jugs clinked, Women at wellside looked up, puzzled by the sight of two veiled travelers who bowed in silent greeting and disappeared again around the next bend. Nephthys, scanning reed beds with keen hawk-bright eyes, spoke rarely, saving each breath for the moment it might call Osiris's name. At midday, the river widened, banks spreading into glowing carpets of green and ochre. The sisters glided past date groves where every palm frond drooped toward the water in solemn salute. Isis lifted a lotus bloom and released it overboard. Current and wind twined to push it ahead, petal tips brushing the mirrored sky. That single blossom became their vanguard, bobbing just far enough ahead to suggest it knew the path. Dragonflies followed, shimmer-winged and glinting like chips of turquoise afloat on sunbeams. Each evening, the sisters landed on some quiet spit of sand or a crescent bank under shelter of sycamores. Neither of them wasted time on grand tents or ceremonial fires. They cleared small circles in the sand and built modest hearths whose flames crackled low so as not to compete with the river's own murmurous song. Over embers they warmed bread spiced with coriander and ate quickly, yet each meal ended with a minute of pure stillness. During that pause, Nephthys would offer fruit or cakes into the flames, bread for any wandering spirit that might guide them, sweet dates for the river that bore them, and an edge shard of pottery to break misfortune. Isis, meanwhile, traced Osiris's name into soot on her palm, then opened her fist so sparks of ash carried those letters up where Nut's sky could read them. Word traveled ahead of these solemn camps. Fishermen poling lantern-lit barges whispered that the queen herself rode at night in plain linen, speaking prayers so quiet they melted into moonlight. Old boatmen at Delta Marshes told grandchildren that two luminous figures passed like wading herons, asking only for knowledge of a carved chest bright as newborn wheat. In one slow meander, a reed cutter stopped swinging his blade because he heard his own little daughter's voice calling from mid-current, only to realize it was Isis whispering Osiris's name, the syllables carrying across water with an uncanny clarity that pierced even old grief. Days turned to a week. One humid dusk, a boy by the water's edge discovered a carved electrum armrest tangled in lilies. He had reached out to claim the treasure when Isis stepped ashore, and the boy's fear dissolved the moment he saw her face, stern yet radiant with kindness. She knelt, brushed river silt from the carving, and recognized the lotus scroll pattern, the same that adorned Osiris's throne. She pressed the armrest to her breast, the way a mother presses an infant. Tears came, but they were silver tears, poised, deliberate, the kind that forge a blade against despair rather than sharpen it. She thanked the boy with a kiss to his forehead, leaving behind an amulet of blue glass shaped like the protective eye, then set the relic gently into the skiff. That discovery proved only the first bead on a string of clues. In a marsh tavern woven from palm trunks, a one-eyed fisherman produced fragments of cedar carved with falcon and papyrus glyphs. He traded them for a single drop of Isis's frankincense to heal his night cough, and for the rest of his life he swore that fragrance glowed like dawn in his lungs. Farther north, a farmer plowing sand-silt fields unearthed a jeweled inlay shaped like a small crook, the twin of Osiris's scepter. The farmer's wife had carried the bauble in a rag pocket for luck until Isis arrived and exchanged it for 7 seeds of lotus that flowered miraculously within a week of planting. Slowly, a mosaic of Osiris's presence reformed. A polished sandal strap here, a linen tassel there, each piece whispering, "Continue." It was as though the land itself conspired to restore what jealousy had scattered. Some finds were less material, more spectral. One night, deep in delta channels, Nephthys stirred awake to see the river glowing faintly. A boyish silhouette robed in greenish light knelt at the skiff's prow, hands cupped wide, gathering silver droplets from nowhere. When she blinked, night returned to ordinary darkness. But in the morning, water lilies surrounding the boat had bloomed 2 days early, and between them floated a small alabaster jar, etched with Osiris's cartouche. Isis unscrewed the lid. Inside coiled a single lock of obsidian hair, unmistakably her husband's. She wound the strand into her bracelet near the lapis scarab, a living pulse against her wrist. But the greatest sign came from a willow grove near the last island before open sea. Willow branches drooped heavy, tips sweeping the water. Even the breeze hesitated, unwilling to disturb that hush. Under the largest willow, half buried in sand, they found a shape like a man's arm, wrapped in embroidered linen, still scented faintly of cedar oil. Isis's breath lodged in her throat. She knelt in the shadow-dappled sand and unwrapped the linen with fingers soft as hush itself. The limb beneath was cool yet still supple, preserved by river and magic. A carved turquoise ring sat on one finger, one she herself had slipped onto Osiris's hand on their wedding eve. Isis pressed that hand to her cheek. She did not weep. Instead, she murmured, "We are nearer, my love. The river is a thread, and I will follow each ripple until it binds us together." Guided by clues both physical and dream-born, the sisters at last gathered every piece, save one. Somewhere beyond reed and dune, one final fragment evaded their prayers. The missing piece was no ordinary flesh. Legend would later call it Osiris's sacred symbol of generative power, the portion devoured by a greedy fish, or perhaps hidden by Set in a fury too wild for words. Isis searched night swamps where silver fish darted. She spoke spells to coax any scale-bright thief to spit out its stolen treasure. But water only burbled, offering lilies in apology. Finally, accepting that this fragment lay beyond living reach, Isis took fine clay from the riverbank and kneaded it with myrrh, honey, and a drop of her own blood, shaping a new piece that glowed faintly in moonlight. She carved upon it signs of rising grain and returning floods, breathing a single syllable into its center, a sound so old only stars remembered hearing it at creation's dawn. The clay warmed in her hands, alive with potential. Now the final vigil began. Beneath the canopy of intertwined willow and tamarisk, beside drifting coils of blue smoke incense, Isis and Nephthys laid Osiris's reassembled form upon soft sand, dusted with milled salt. They bathed each limb with scented water, winding linen in overlapping spirals, speaking the deep, rolling cadence of the spell for binding bone to bone, taught by Anubis himself. Their voices never wavered through the long night, for magic of that magnitude requires a singer's heart to hold steady no matter how grief keens beneath. At the very hour that the star Sopdet glimmers brightest, those few trembling heartbeats before true sunrise, Isis placed her hands upon Osiris's sternum. She shut her eyes and recalled the first afternoon they met, an orchard humming with bees, fruit warmed by sunlight, Osiris smiling as if he had never known gloom. She pictured that smile until its glow filled her chest. Then she exhaled sharply through parted lips, releasing that warmth as pure breath. The air shimmered, linen rustled, sand whispered. Beneath her palms something shifted. Osiris drew one tentative breath, a hush of wind crossing harp strings. Another breath followed, deeper. Color crept across his cheeks. Lids fluttered, revealing eyes like a deep river when sunrise kisses water. Lapis, quiet, fathomless. From Isis burst a cry unlike any human sound, the sound of hope exhaling after being held captive too long. Osiris's first words were gentle thanks, though they quivered with awe that love's power had reached him even through coffin, water, and storm. That reunion could have felt like eternity, yet Osiris knew another eternity beckoned. The Duat, realm of the dead, waited for a king who could guide lost souls. He spoke softly to his beloved queen. "My place is now among the stars and hidden caverns. But fear not, life never wholly leaves love. You carry our future." His palm rested over Isis's abdomen. Already there fluttered an answer, a budding heartbeat. "Horus will rise," Osiris murmured, "and morning will return to the kingdom." They lingered, two silhouettes silvered by dawn, as if even the sun hesitated to draw them apart. Yet finally Osiris straightened, newly noble in linen that gleamed pale green, the hue of papyrus shoots that promise new growth everywhere. He pressed a final kiss to Isis's brow and stepped toward the palm-shaded brink of day. The wind lifted, reeds bowed, and Osiris, like a shaft of moonlit mist, drifted westward toward the hidden gateways. His departure felt, at first, like silence falling, but in that quiet dawn, Isis placed both hands on her belly and sensed the flutter again, a soft drumming that echoed the river's pulse. Sunlight spilled through willow branches, painting rings of gold on rippling water. The breeze smelled of clay and myrrh and something sweeter, as though the future itself had an aroma. Nephthys knelt beside her sister, wrapping an arm around shoulders still trembling with wonder. Together they watched the sky shift from rose to bright, blush gold. Downriver, peasants stirring from sleep felt that same hush lift, replaced by warmth curling through their chest like a long-absent friend stepping over the threshold. A baker kneading barley dough suddenly remembered an old hymn. Children filling water jars hummed it too, though none could name why the melody had returned. Fields that had yellowed under Set's anxious rule now seemed greener for no reason beyond a feeling carried on the wind. In that first morning of her new solitude, Isis allowed serenity, not joy, not sorrow, but serenity, to fill the spaces grief had hollowed. She would remain on Nile banks until her child was born, hidden yet protected by marsh and spell. And one day Horus would rise with falcon wings and clear eyes, with his father's calm and his mother's iron hope. Set's desert winds would meet a storm they could not quell, and balance, Ma'at herself, would once again weigh every heart against the feather of truth. For now Isis listened to the river sigh, and felt Horus turn gently within, a promise sealed by Osiris's final breath and quickened by her own unwavering love. She rested one palm on the earth, one on her womb, and let the rhythm of water carry her first quiet lullaby to the child who would become Egypt's protector. Somewhere beyond sight, Osiris guided lantern-bright souls along hidden canals of the Duat, but a thin silver thread, love, unbreakable, still bound him to the valley. Whenever night wind rustled reeds, it sang of that thread, whispering to all who would listen that loss can be woven into hope, and endings, under devoted hands, can birth beginnings. And thus, by devotion deeper than the river's bed and magic older than the stars themselves, Isis restored her beloved and safeguarded the future king. The world shifted on its axis, realigned by her courage. And we, still rocking in rhythm with the Nile's eternal flow, turn now toward the next chapter. The bright-eyed child grown tall, ready to challenge chaos in the great trial of Horus versus Set. In the hush that followed Osiris's descent into the Duat, the world held its breath. The Nile flowed more slowly, as if mourning, and the wind through the papyrus whispered his name. Yet even in grief, hope stirred quietly among the reeds. From the secret marshes of the delta, hidden from the eyes of Set and those loyal to him, Isis raised her child in silence. Horus, son of Osiris, was born not in a palace, but in the wild, beneath the green arch of papyrus and beside the warm banks of Egypt's sacred river. His cradle was woven from reeds and softened by linen. His lullabies were the croak of frogs and the calls of distant ibis. And around him, the stillness of the swamp held him in perfect safety. Each day, Isis watched him grow stronger. She was both mother and guardian, our high priestess and healer, queen and outcast. In the glow of morning, she would trace symbols of protection into the air above her son's head. At night, she whispered prayers into his hair as he slept. Nephthys, Isis's sister, sometimes joined them in quiet solidarity, their sisterhood strengthened by sorrow and devotion. Horus grew quickly, tall and straight, with the sharp gaze of a hawk and the stillness of his father. He was gentle and playful, but beneath the laughter in his voice lay something deeper, a calling. The gods watched from afar, their attention like starlight, distant but constant. When Horus came of age, Isis sat him down beneath a sycamore tree beside the river. Her eyes were heavy with memory, her voice soft. "You are not just my son," she said. "You are Egypt's heir. Your father's throne does not belong to Set. It belongs to you, but you must not take it with rage. You must restore it with truth." Horus listened, eyes steady. "I will go to the gods," he said, "and I will speak my name with honor." So it was that Horus set out from the marshes dressed in simple linen, a golden falcon charm around his neck. He walked not like a warrior, but like a messenger, one bearing a memory too long buried. Far beyond the sight of mortals stood the hall of the gods, a place untouched by time. The air shimmered with sacred stillness, and the floor gleamed like polished onyx beneath a sky woven from stars. Each god had a place around the circle, seated on thrones carved from elements of their domain. Thoth held his scrolls, Mayat her feather, Ra his eternal light, and Anubis his jackal gaze. The great eye of divine order hovered above, watchful but impartial. Horus entered and bowed. "I am the son of Osiris," he said, voice calm but unshaking, "and I come to claim the throne that was taken." From the far end of the hall, Set rose slowly. His frame was broad and his eyes burned red with stormlight. "You are a child raised in reeds," he said, his voice like cracking stone. "What do you know of ruling Egypt? Strength makes a king, not sentiment." Thoth raised a hand for silence. "Let the trials begin." The gods agreed. Horus and Set would face a series of divine tests, not only of might, but of wisdom, endurance, mercy, and truth. For 70 days, the gods would bear witness. The first challenge was a contest of transformation. Set, born of chaos, was a master of shapeshifting. He turned into a lion, a scorpion, a serpent, and finally a whirlwind of desert sand. Horus, calm as dusk, took the shape of a falcon and flew circles above Set's fury. He became the breeze, the shadow, the stillness between waves. When he returned to his form, he stood unshaken. The second challenge was a race across the sacred lake. Ra declared the rules. Each shall build a boat of stone. May the gods see who crosses first. Set carved his from granite, dense and indestructible. Horus, quietly clever, built his from wood and covered it with pale gypsum to mimic stone. At dawn, the race began. Set's boat splashed heavily into the lake and began to sink, the weight pulling it slowly beneath the surface. Horus's boat, light and swift, skimmed forward, water curling like silk beneath its prow. Realizing the deception, Set roared and leapt into the water, transforming into a great red hippopotamus. He charged through the lake, scattering fish and waves. Horus stood tall at the bow of his boat, lifted his spear, and called upon his father's name. He cast the spear with the strength of all his years, striking Set between the eyes and forcing him back into godly form. But before he could strike again, Isis appeared. She stood on the shore, palms raised. "No more," she said gently. "Let him live." "He killed my father," Horus replied. "He drowned him in a coffin and cast him into the Nile." Isis's voice trembled. "And yet, if you slay him, you become what he is. Your justice must be greater than vengeance." Horus lowered his hand. The gods murmured among themselves, noting his restraint. That night, the gods gathered to speak. The hall was dim, lit only by starlight and the flickering blue flame of sacred oil. They debated the nature of justice, the right to rule, and whether youth could ever eclipse experience. Set, emboldened, accused Horus of treachery. He is young. He is clever with tricks. But the throne should not be won by deception. Thoth, ever thoughtful, replied, "Nor should it be won by murder." When the gods could not agree, Isis suggested they summon Osiris himself from the Duat, where he ruled the realm of the dead. A messenger swift as wind was sent. Through winding tomb roads and under star-filled ceilings, the divine envoy found Osiris seated on his throne, robed in black and gold, surrounded by souls waiting judgment. The message was spoken. Osiris listened in silence. His expression did not shift, but his hands clasped tighter around his staff. Finally he spoke. "Let this be known to all the gods. Horus is my son not only by blood, but by virtue. He has shown mercy where I might have shown wrath. He has walked in the rhythm of Mat... The throne is his." The messenger returned, carrying Osiris's decree in words of pure light. When it was read aloud in the hall of the gods, the sky above shifted. A great wind passed through the pillars, and even Ra paused in his eternal path to shine more brightly. The gods stood one by one. Ma'at bowed. Thoth nodded. Hathor smiled. And Anubis, still and stern, crossed his arms in solemn approval. Only Set remained seated, his jaw clenched, eyes shadowed. Horus turned to him. "I do not ask you to kneel," he said softly, "only to let go." Set rose... He did not speak. He did not nod. But slowly he turned and walked into the distance, his red cloak disappearing into the mist beyond the hall. When Set had vanished into the distance, a calm unlike any felt before settled over the hall of the gods. It was as if the very stars exhaled. The weight that had hung over the world since the fall of Osiris now lifted like mist before the dawn. Ra, the ever-shining, stood and approached Horus. His form was radiant, crowned in flame and eternity. He carried the strength of day and the memory of beginning. "You are not just king of Egypt," Ra said, his voice as smooth as sun-warmed stone. "You are now protector of Ma'at, of balance and truth. Let your reign bring harmony not only to the land, but to the hearts of those who dwell upon it." Thoth came forward next. In his hands he held a scroll, a record of all that had passed. With ink from the sacred well of memory, he had written each moment, each choice, each word. He presented it to Horus and said, "Rule not only with justice, but with remembrance." know that your actions ripple across time. Let the memory of your mercy guide the future. Then came Ma'at, goddess of balance, robed in feathers, her crown holding the sacred plume. She placed her feather at Horus's feet. "This," she said gently, "is the standard of your rule. May every breath you take, every judgment you pass, and every path you choose weigh as light and honest as this." And lastly, Isis approached her son, no longer a child in hiding, but a ruler standing in the full light of the gods. She embraced him, not as a mother grieving a lost husband, but as a queen welcoming the dawn of a better world. "My son," she whispered, "you have done what few gods or mortals could. You met cruelty with patience. You brought justice without cruelty. You became what your father was, and more." So it was that Horus was crowned. The crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, tall and double-plumed, was placed upon his brow. The flail and crook, symbols of rulership and care, were given into his hands. And the gods chanted softly, their voices like wind through lotus leaves. "Horus, son of Isis, falcon of the sky, bearer of justice whose wings stretch wide. May your gaze be sharp, your words be kind, and your heart always steady in the balance of time." Horus returned to the mortal world not with fanfare, but with grace. The skies cleared as he stepped onto the warm sand. Villagers looked up from their fields and market stalls and paused, sensing a shift in the very rhythm of the earth. He did not enter palaces with armies or commands. Instead, he walked among the people, quiet and present, his shadow stretching long across the stones of the old temples. Where he passed, children giggled and reached out to touch the edge of his linen robe. Old women bowed and whispered blessings. Even the animals seemed to take comfort. Cattle grew calm, and herons flew low in peaceful circles above. At Memphis, he stood beneath the columns of white stone and spoke softly to the gathered scribes and nobles. "This land is not mine to rule with force," he said. "It is mine to nurture, as Osiris once did. I will not rule alone. I will rule with Maat." He re-established the temples, not in grandeur, but in balance. Priests once aligned with Set were given choices, not chains. The scribes were told to record not only law, but poetry. Farmers were given seasons of rest. The Nile, as if in agreement, rose steadily that year, flooding the fields with gentle waters, rich in silt and promise. In time, Horus's face appeared on amulets and carvings, not as a warrior, but as a falcon perched beside a flowering palm, or as a king seated calmly with the eye of Ra shining above him. But Horus did not forget the path that brought him here. In the great temple of Edfu, built by those who would come centuries later to honor him, Horus stood alone one dusk. The light filtered through the columns, casting long golden shafts that danced with dust motes and incense smoke. It was quiet, still. Isis appeared at his side. She did not speak at first. They stood together, listening to the pulse of the earth beneath the stones. "Do you still carry anger?" she asked at last. Horus paused. "Not anger, not anymore. But I carry memory. I remember the coffin. I remember the silence after Father was gone. I remember what it felt like to want justice so badly it burned." Isis nodded, her face lined with both wisdom and fatigue. "Then you understand the throne." He turned to her, offering a faint smile. "I do." They sat together as the stars emerged overhead, nuts jewels across the curve of the heavens. Somewhere in the temple beyond, a priest began to hum a hymn in honor of the falcon. The song was slow and lulling, shaped like prayer and wind. Meanwhile, far across the desert, Set wandered. His palace gone, his followers scattered, his power diminished. But the gods had not banished him forever, for even Set, god of storm and disorder, had his place in the cosmic dance. He was now the guardian of Ra's solar boat as it passed through the Duat each night. And so, night after night, Set battled the serpent Apophis, the chaos snake that tried to swallow the sun. Though he had once brought chaos, he now fought it, and in doing so found a strange redemption. Even chaos, it seemed, could be tempered. Even shadows had their duties beneath the stars. And in Egypt, balance was restored. The harvests returned. The stars moved again with certainty. The Nile laughed over stones and whispered peace into the palms. Temples once defiled were rebuilt, but gently, their walls now bearing both warning and wisdom. And Horus, with his falcon wings etched into the memories of all who lived, ruled in stillness. Not every day was perfect, but under Horus's watch, Egypt learned again to live with grace. Years passed like ripples across the Nile, gentle and rhythmic. Under Horus's steady rule, Egypt thrived, not in conquest or domination, but in peace, in harmony, in a quiet kind of greatness. Crops grew thick with grain, fishermen pulled Nile perch from sparkling waters, and children learned to recite the names of the gods with joy, not fear. Temples echoed with calm chants. The priests of Thoth and Moat walked side by side through gardens of sycamore and lotus, their debates centered not on war or vengeance, but on justice, order, and balance. Horus himself often traveled in secret through the cities and villages, dressed not in gold but in plain robes, offering aid, advice, and silence where needed. When people looked into his eyes, they saw not pride, but presence. Stories of his mercy spread. In one town, he resolved a bitter land dispute not with law, but by asking both farmers to share the field and care for it as one. In another, he stopped an execution by asking if revenge could ever bring back the peace that had been lost. And in every market, his name became a blessing murmured as coins exchanged hands. Even his symbol, the Eye of Horus, carved gently into doorways and amulets, was no longer a mark of vengeance. It became a sign of healing, of clarity, of watching over loved ones while they slept. Yet he never forgot Set. The Chaos God remained in the Duat, guarding Ra's bark during its nightly journey through the underworld. There, Set did not speak often. He was a protector now, a warrior not for himself, but for the balance of all. Each night, he stood at the prow of Ra's sunboat and fought off the serpent Apophis, the embodiment of nothingness. And so, the one who once betrayed Ma'at became its last defender in the dark. Horus would sometimes visit the great temple at Abydos, where Osiris was honored. He would stand before the great stone effigy of his father and close his eyes. He could feel Osiris not in the statues, but in the steady rhythm of the Nile's flow, in the pulse of justice running through every court, in the kindness between neighbors, and in the echo of every song sung to Nut's stars. My father, Horus would sometimes whisper, your kingdom endures. And deep below, in the cool silence of the Duat, Osiris would smile. So ended the long war between shadow and light. Not with thunder or final judgment, but with understanding, transformation, and healing. The gods themselves remembered this story for aeons. It was told by firelight in stone chambers, painted on the walls of tombs, whispered over offerings, and sung as lullabies. Pharaohs wore the double crown in Horus's name, claiming descent not just from divine blood, but from divine patience and perseverance. And through it all, the falcon soared. Now, as you rest, imagine the image of Horus stretched across the sky, wings wide, eyes watchful, a stillness in his presence that softens even the sharpest memories. Hear the hush of the Nile in flood, the soft pad of linen-wrapped feet in temple halls, the wind rising over the desert as it carries away the last of old resentments. Let this be your closing thought, that justice may be slow, but it arrives. That balance, though often shaken, always seeks to return. That mercy, gentle and sure, is the highest form of strength. And with that, we leave behind the trials of gods, the echoes of their voices still lingering in the reeds. The eye watches, the land breathes, and Horus remains. We now journey beyond the living world into the realm of night and stars, to follow Ra, the great sun god, as he sails his celestial bark through the Duat. It is a voyage filled with visions and shadows, with serpents and secret gates, with eternal rebirth beneath the sky. Close your eyes if they are not already closed. Feel the stillness of balance settled in your chest, and follow the soft glow of the sun's reflection on the water as we slip into the final story of the night. The nightly journey of Ra awaits. As the golden sun descends in the western sky and the light of day begins to fade, Egypt enters a sacred hush. The breeze softens. The Nile glistens with orange and violet. In that quiet hour, as the horizon darkens and the stars blink awake, Ra, the great sun god, prepares for his nightly voyage. Ra, radiant and wise, stands at the edge of the world. His form is regal, his skin glows with the warmth of day, and his crown, a flaming solar disk encircled by a protective cobra, rests gently atop his noble brow. Though he is ancient beyond time, he carries himself with the calm presence of someone who has seen eternity and has made peace with it. As day ends, Ra steps gracefully into his bark, the Manjet, also known as the boat of millions of years. This is no ordinary vessel. Crafted of gold, light, and divine will, it gleams even in the gathering dusk. Along its prow coils Mayhem, the serpent of protection, his shimmering body wrapped gently around the bow. At the stern stands Sia, the personification of perception and awareness, and Heka, god of magic and divine power. These three, Sia, Heka, and Mayhem, are ever-present, silent guardians of Ra's nightly passage. As Ra takes his place at the helm, his form shifts. The radiant man of daylight becomes Afu-Ra, the ram-headed god of night. His eyes are calm but all-seeing, and his horns curl like the twin currents of the underworld Nile. He is not diminished in this form. He is simply different. This is Ra as traveler, as dreamer, as protector of the sleeping world. The journey begins at the edge of the western horizon. The Manjet glides forward, leaving behind the mortal world and entering the hidden realm of the Duat, the great subterranean river that mirrors the Nile, but flows through the world of spirit, memory, and mystery. The Duat is not a place of torment or terror. It is a sacred realm, painted in deep blues and silvers, lit not by sun but by the quiet glow of starlight, moonbeams, and blossoms that shine like fireflies. The riverbanks are lined with strange and beautiful plants, reeds taller than men, flowers that open only to Ra's gaze, and gentle palm trees that sway without wind. In the distance, temples float half-submerged, echoing with hymns sung in forgotten tongues. Each hour of the night is a gate, A passage, a moment, and with each gate the Manjet sails forward, slowly, gently, as if carried not just by water, but by time itself. At the first hour, twilight envelops the boat. The sun has just set. The guardians at the first gate bow their heads in welcome. They are tall, jackal-faced beings robed in linen and adorned with lapis pendants. They hold no weapons, only staffs etched with the eye of Ra. They know this passage well. They have watched Ra pass by for millennia. They step aside, and the boat glides past. Within the bark, Sia whispers gently, describing all they see. Here, the land of memory. The souls of kings walk beside the water, looking not ahead but behind, revisiting their days with peace. Hika hums a quiet chant under his breath, reinforcing the boat with invisible power. His magic isn't loud. It pulses softly, like a second heartbeat to the bark. Ra remains silent, gazing ahead, eyes glowing faintly beneath his ram-shaped brow. At the second hour, the river darkens. Shadows lengthen. The plants now shine with bluish light. The banks are dotted with statues, hundreds, thousands, all watching silently as the boat moves past. Some smile, some frown, some weep stone tears. These, Sia says softly, are memories turned to stone. Prayers spoken once and never again. Each statue is a voice from the world above, remembered in silence. Mehen coils a little tighter around the prow, ever watchful. The third hour brings a gentle rain, not of water, but of glowing feathers. They fall from the sky like slow snow, drifting down and dissolving into mist as they touch the river. Each feather carries a name. These are the names of the departed, inscribed by scribes long ago. Ra raises a hand. One feather lands in his palm. It glows for a moment, and then disappears. The soul it belongs to smiles in their sleep, somewhere above, sensing peace. No storms touch the Manjet. No fear enters the bark. This is the realm of quiet passage, not escape, not conquest, but understanding. At the fourth hour, Ra and his crew arrive at a great gate carved from black stone. It towers above the river like a mountain. Before it stands a goddess with lion eyes and wings of night. Her name is unknown to all but Ra, who nods to her with deep respect. She steps aside, and the stone doors open without sound. Inside is the pathway to the deeper hours, where light and dark twist and merge like smoke. The Manjet sails on. As the Manjet passes through the black stone gate into the deeper hours of night, the Duat shifts. The silver starlight dims, replaced by a warm, glowing indigo. The river now winds slowly between vast caverns carved into the bones of the world, chambers where time forgets itself, where the boundary between memory and dream thins. The fifth hour is the hour of remembrance. Souls wander the riverbanks, not lost, but waiting. They are gentle figures made of mist and gold, holding papyrus scrolls against their chests. Each one contains the story of a life. Names of loved ones, childhood laughter, gentle words whispered at twilight. Sia leans forward and speaks reverently. These are the forgotten joys, small moments that mattered greatly and were never written in stone. Ra listens in silence, his eyes growing gentler. The bark drifts past without disturbing the waters. The souls smile faintly and vanish behind curtains of light. At the sixth hour, the Manjet reaches the Hall of Silence. No sounds pass here, no voice, no song. The river becomes a mirror, perfectly still, reflecting stars that do not exist in the waking world. This is the midpoint of the journey, the moment when Ra is farthest from the world above. His light dims, not extinguished, but hushed. He becomes smaller, as if wrapping himself in his own warmth. Even Mehen coils closer around the boat, guarding him more tightly. His scales shimmer faintly in the dim glow. The other gods on board stand still, respectful. Not even Heka chants here. Magic, too, is silent. And in that stillness, the great serpent stirs. Apep, also called Apophis, awakens in the deepest trench of the Duat. A god of chaos, of unmaking, of eternal hunger. His form is long and vast, darker than ink, blacker than shadow. His eyes burn like cold coals and his body undulates with silent fury. Apep was never born. He is the opposite of creation, the dark that lingers at the edge of dawn. He rises. From below, from within, from nowhere. His movement creates no ripple, yet the river quakes in spirit. He senses Ra, senses the warmth, the purpose, the beating sun heart at the center of the Manjet, and he hates it. Above, the gods do not panic. They've faced him every night. Heka steps forward to the bow, raising his arms. The spell he now chants is soft but firm, a string of ancient words older than language, infused with divine purpose. Mehen's eyes glow, bright green. He uncoils slightly, ready to protect. Apep lunges. He rises in a great arc, his jaws wide, his fangs dripping with dark. For a moment, the Duat holds its breath, but Ra does not flinch. He lifts a hand, and from his palm emerges the image of the sun, not in flame, but in golden truth. A ripple of warmth radiates outward. Heka's spell strengthens. Mehen strikes, not with violence, but with purpose. His body, a circle of divine protection, coils tighter around Apep's throat. The serpent screams, but no sound emerges. He twists and thrashes in the river, biting at light, at memory, at the meaning of order, but he cannot consume it. Finally, weakened, Apep retreats into the trench from whence he came. The Manjet, untouched, continues forward. At the 7th hour, the air lightens. A gentle wind stirs the river's surface, and the stars grow brighter. Small lotus flowers rise from the water and bloom with soft sighs, as if in relief. The danger has passed for now. Ra remains calm, though he is quieter still. The battle has taken some of his strength, as it always does. Yet even now he carries within him the seed of dawn. At the 8th hour, the river becomes narrower, flanked by tall cliffs of glowing stone. Carved into their sides are glyphs, messages left by the first gods. Prayers, promises, prophecies. Sia reads them softly. Ra will rise. The morning will come. All that is lost will be returned. At the 9th hour, they pass through a chamber where stars are born. These are not stars of science or fire, but stars of hope, tiny golden orbs that emerge from the river, float upward, and vanish into the dark. Each one is a soul renewed, a story remembered, a child's laugh carried into forever. Sia smiles. The dreams of mortals. Ra carries them with him. Still, the journey is not over. At the 10th hour, they approach the Valley of Time. Here, hourglasses float like lanterns, each containing a single moment, some still turning, others stopped forever. Time here is delicate. The boat must move slowly, carefully. One ripple could disturb the balance. Ra lowers his gaze. Even I, he murmurs, am bound to time. Heka touches the side of the boat and hums a low, gore-anchoring note. Mehen curls protectively, and the bark glides on. The 11th hour brings warmth, the first hint of returning day. The stars above seem to breathe more slowly. The river widens again, and in the distance a soft light glows, not bright yet, but constant. It is the horizon. Ra stands tall once more. His form begins to shift, returning from Aphura to radiant Ra. His crown reappears, his eyes brighten, and the warmth in his chest pulses stronger. The Duat has not defeated him. Dawn is near. The 12th hour approaches, the final stretch of the journey. It is the hour of emergence, of renewal, of return. The Manjet now sails into a wide expanse of river that glows faintly gold. The cliffs fall away. The shadows grow long and transparent. Here, time and eternity touch like fingertips. The eastern gate, the horizon of the mortal world, shimmers ahead, not with urgency, but with promise. Ra stands taller now, transformed again from the ram-headed Aphura into the radiant sun god of morning. His golden crown burns gently with the first light of day. Around him, the gods aboard the bark stir with reverent purpose. Heka chants his final words, sealing the magic that sustained them. Sia lifts his hands and names each of the hours they've passed through, giving thanks to the guardians who kept watch. Mehen, faithful and silent, begins to unwind from the prow, stretching like a great ring of light and shadow around the bow, still ready, still alert. Ahead, the gate of dawn begins to open. It is not a door as we know it, but a rising veil, a curtain of lavender and rose, soft and shimmering. Behind it, the world stirs. Birds ruffle their feathers. Farmers shift in their sleep. The wind over the Nile catches its breath. Ra raises his hand, and the Manjet sails through. And just like that, the sun rises. The Duat slips away like a dream. The great bark rises with grace, carried by invisible forces up into the eastern sky. Warmth spreads across the land. A shaft of golden light touches the tops of palm trees, glints off the surface of the Nile, and enters the windows of sleeping homes. Ra is reborn. In the villages below, children turn in their beds. A lotus unfurls at the edge of a still pond. A heron lifts into the air with a single beat of its wings. All across Egypt, life stretches into motion. The darkness is gone, not defeated but soothed, carried safely behind the veil of night where it will wait again. The people do not fear it, for they know Ra will return. Every day is a gift borrowed from his courage. Every dawn a thread in the unbroken tapestry of his journey. And so the gods smile from their shrines. Priests begin their morning chants. Incense rises into the sky, thin and fragrant. And far above, Ra continues his endless circuit across the heavens, his light touching every temple, every reed, every sleeping soul. This is not a tale of war or triumph through force. This is a tale of rhythm, of sacred trust, of eternal return. Now, as you rest, imagine yourself aboard that great bark, feeling the slow rise of the river beneath you, hearing the gentle lapping of water against wood, watching the stars melt into light. Mehen sleeps beside you, coiled and calm. Sia reads softly to himself, and Heka whispers blessings over your head. Ra stands at the helm, his presence warm and kind. The journey is safe. The night has passed. The light has returned. Even now in your dreams you carry a piece of that golden light within you. Let it guide you. Let it comfort you. Let it remind you that even the longest night gives way to dawn. Thus ends the fifth and final tale of the evening. You have journeyed far tonight, through the birth of the world, the rise and fall of gods, the pain of loss and the promise of renewal. From the waters of Nun to the throne of Horus, from Isis's quiet devotion to Ra's return from darkness. The gods have watched over you, and now they whisper their goodbyes. The sky is calm, the Nile is still, and all is well. Sleep peacefully, dear traveller. The sun will rise again. Good night.